Wild's Title Update 2 has released and concluded to a reception. That naturally leaves us with a burning question. The most burning, the burningest question on every Monster Hunter enjoyer's mind. Is Wild's good now? For that, we'll first need to define what it means to be. Just kidding, I barely speak English as is. The key new additions were Lagiacrus, a long-awaited and demanded returner, and Seregios, which in all future instances I'll be calling by its official nickname, Steve. His swags, the Baron Defiance, has below standard raw of 210 and well above standard affinity of 25%, with the standard weapon slot distribution of 3-1 and 30 units of white sharpness.
Wow!
The innate skill is a returner from Sunbreak, which itself replaced his weapon's gimmick from 4 Ultimate, being automatic sharpening after a few rolls, with a % chance to restore 20 units of sharpness when dodging near a hurt box.
Or is it?
Instead of sharpening on dodges, it now replaces your sharpness bar with a different sharpness bar for a few hits, which depletes before your actual sharpness and has its own set of modifiers. If you've been screaming at the dragon file, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise for one and only one purpose: testing that modifier. And upon calculation, it is 1.4 for raw and 1.25 for element. Wait a minute, that looks familiar. Other than that, Dragonfile naturally still sucks. The set, on the other hand, is great news for weapons that don't rely on latent power and Counter-Strike, as well as off-meta enjoyers that prefer the dodge-centric playstyles. Capcom was even kind enough to include Counter-Strike on the alpha set skill list, in case you mess up your dodges. No, genuinely, why is this here? This skill is diametrically opposed to the playstyle this set wants to promote. The set bonus itself is pretty alright, letting players refresh Adrenaline Rush while it's already active. I guess it would have been a little too much if we could just refresh conditional skills with timers while they're already active, right? Right. Steve's fight is... well, it's Steve. We get the classic swipes, spikes and happy feet, all packed with a healthy dose of bleeding to death. It flows reasonably well in my experience, and I can even imagine this one being an actually good hunt. At least for weapons whose entire shtick isn't LMAO hyper armor. The second big addition, Lagiacrus, brought us the Highbolt Axe, boasting average raw of 220, 30 thunder, build and power prolonger 2, no affinity and a standard distribution of weapon slots with the tried and true configuration of 3-1. The sharpness bar can only be reasonably described as huge, and it has a power file to boot. Overall, this swags has phenomenal stats. The icing on the cake is Convert Thunder resistance, which, as the name implies, adds 40% of your thunder res to the weapon's thunder element. Whether intentionally or not, giving this weapon a power file was the correct choice, and I'll go over why in the next video, assuming all goes according to plan. The set itself, besides the inclusion of latent power, is by Wild standards very efficient, without strictly translating to power creep. That's very cool to see, not invalidating consistent players' efforts of fine-tuning their sets, but just making the same sets but better. As I mentioned in the post-RNG Charms meta video, it didn't really perform well for swags, mostly because of how FRS behaves and how expensive Wax is for the effectively 30% affinity it provides, how inflexible it is for mind's eye matchups and approaches, and how the set bonus isn't exactly fantastic. At both levels, it has a 30-second cooldown window, while level 1 lasts for 20 and level 2 for 30 seconds when activated. While active, it grants 15 affinity, as well as dealing a little bit of damage on activation. Its worst 2-piece score with a thunder-flavored Scorcher side effect that can only ever be up for 50% of the time if you commit to 4-piece Lagi or 40% for 2-piece. That said, even for swags, it has 2 distinct use cases. When optimizing for guardians that don't typically have high agitator uptimes because of how their states work, and if you just really hate latent power, it'll perform worse in the latter case, but some people will value that over the each hit meta we're currently entrenched in. As for Laggy himself, the introduction cutscene is the most blatant case of "hey, remember Try?" I've ever seen. It recreated the Try opening cinematic, which, at least for me, only served to highlight how we don't have those anymore, and reminded me of my humble beginnings with this franchise, when you actively had to try to break the game, when it didn't take itself seriously, had wacky characters, a story consisting of 5 text boxes before and urgent quests, and felt unsurmountably difficult until things started clicking. Whilst you can take my joy from a mage, but you can't take my memories, so stop trying, please. The hunt is pretty alright for the most part, and if you look at who this is coming from, understand that that is a huge achievement. Contrary to my personal worries, he doesn't discharge an orb spam, which makes him overall feel fair and balanced to interact with. Asterisk. Towards the end of the hunt, he is hard-coded to transition into his nest if he's not already there, and HP gated until the underwater sequence is completed. While it is an extremely watered down, get it, version of the Remember Try underwater experience, hot take for the better, it is a fitting cinematic experience for the first 2 or 3 times. If, for one reason or another, you choose to grind him though, and if you want his gear you will, because we're also back to "hey, remember Try" rare drop rates, it's a jarring break to the otherwise reasonable flow. Rumor has it that Capcom is working on getting him into the arena, at which point I'd be willing to call him good. And just as I was wrapping up the script, we got official confirmation that starting TU3, Laggy will actually spawn in the arena. This might be the very first time I can say something purely positive about Wilds. Asterisk. Unless tempered, at which point his discharges become deadly even through hyper armor, which sucks for the weapon whose entire shtick is LMAO hyper armor. Seriously, why are we worse as AED-CB? I can't help but imagine the design meeting on these things going a little something like...
What do you think about health augment?
We'll think about it, but we like it.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, back to work.
They said they liked it, so they'll definitely implement it. We best give monsters one-shots to balance it out.
Actually, lifesteal is always a little unbalanced. And the other guys probably won't balance around it. So let's not do it.
How's the health augment coming along?
We're well prepared, we made a lot of one-shots and made the modifiers big enough to compensate for it.
Yeah, so we decided against it. Sorry boss, we think it's too imbalanced.
Great, ship it as is.
Talking about tempered monsters, the last originally planned addition to TU2 was Arch-Tempered Uthduna. I've only hunted it a handful of times and would share my opinion if only I had one on. My overall experience with it is best summed up as meh. And what I gathered from a handful of other, more skilled people than myself, that seems to be the overall opinion of it, at least within my group of regulars. Set-wise, it improves upon the existing Uthduna sets, much as AT rated, but not by much, given how the whole idea is peak performance. The feet in particular are neat for more comfort-oriented sets, and for a brief period of time, managed to find their way into the Switch Axe meta too, despite its otherwise not exactly stellar skill loadout. The final big addition was an additional tier of tempered monsters. Originally planned for TU3, it was released in TU2 instead, and brought RNG charms with it. On one hand, it's cool that those charms don't violently overshadow every craftable option and have a relatively minute impact, at least on swags. On the other hand, something with a chance of 1 in the 260-ish thousands should probably be a little more rewarding than here's 7 attack which amounts to almost 0 fewer hits needed to win. While I do find that a weird design choice, I've no proper opinion on the way it was handled, considering I specifically switched to PC gaming to have better load times in between hunts to grind the good charms faster, as well as make full use of the wonderful crossplay feature introduced in Monster Hunter Wilds. The additional tier are 9-star templates, which boast even bigger attack and HP modifiers than the previous iterations, and even later tempered wound appearance. I think normal wounds appear as fast, if not faster, than on 8.5s, but have basically no health themselves. With the announcement of Final Fantasy's giant kill that machine Omega finding its way into a game where the average village doesn't have running water, this concludes Title Update 2. The singular correct answer to the question, is Wilds good yet? It depends. People like what they like for reasons only they know, mocking and assumptions over how someone could like this piece of shit disguised as a game, or that all you need to do is pay $2,500 and surely you'll come around to love it, is ultimately helpful to no one. Speedrunning it vanilla is still ass.